Welcome to Behind the Buzzwords with Tracy Eames, Arielle Morton, and Yanta Haynes, where we expand on marketing terms, tactics, and strategies in a more digestible way for entrepreneurs and business owners. Our goal is to debunk the marketing myths, remove scary barriers, and have a damn good time doing it. So take a seat and buckle up because you're in for a fun ride.
Welcome back to Behind the Buzzwords. We are back by popular demand. I am Tracy Eames. I'm here with Yanta Haynes and Arielle Morton, and we are going to talk a little bit more about marketing. So after last week's episode, we had a bunch of questions around all that sounds fun, y'all, but where do I start? Like, what do I do first? How do I get started on this whole marketing thing? So Arielle, maybe you can tell our listeners, where do you start when you're thinking about marketing?
Ooh, I love this. This is actually one of my favorite parts, branding. And so again, when we think about branding, not your logo and your website and your color palette and all those amazing things, which are necessary, but that's just an element of branding. That's visuals. I'm talking about your core foundations. And so when you're thinking about where do you start originally is who are you and what are your key values? Because that needs to show up not only in your forward-facing connections, but it also needs to show up in your delivery, in your marketing, in your sales, in your interactions with your customers. And so authentically showing up as yourself, really identifying like what pisses me off? Like, what do I wish more people knew about? What am I sick of seeing? What in my industry is failing people? Yeah. And especially the people that I'm serving. And so asking yourself all these questions, what it does is it brings out your beliefs, the things that you stand on, your mission, the vision that you see. All these things start bubbling up to the top. And I see Yanta smiling, so I'm going to pass it over to Yanta because I know she's about to tear up what I just said and give you all a little bit more.
Oh, no, I just love it, Arielle, because, you're stepping into my arena. All I had, like all those questions that you brought forward was like the shadow work side of yourself. It's actually truly deep diving and saying, what does Teresa want? What does Bessie want? What does Anna want? Really, when it's where you start at is where do you want to really show up in this world and how do you want to show up? Not what your friends say show up as, not where you see other companies show up as, not what like you said, the visuals got you feeling like you have to be polished and professional when you show up. How can you show up and just do it? Because most people, I think, when you start off where you say, Tracy, the beginning, where do you begin? You just begin. And if you think too much on where you begin, you can get stuck not beginning. And those questions that Arielle gave you are some of the questions that you really need to dissect and see, how do you want to show up and how do you want to show up? What does marketing mean to you? If you have a love-hate with marketing, you can show up in marketing and as an evil marketer. And all you're doing is looking for money because that's where the ideal of what marketing does is bring money into your business. But if you show up with a loving and compassionate towards people to help them in their situation, then marketing can show up compassionate for you and you'll actually love what you do. So actually knowing, how do you see marketing? Why do you want to do marketing? What is the benefit of the marketing in your company? And most importantly, research what in your industry, what are they doing? What do you like that they do? Like you said, Arielle, what do you don't like that they do? What would you never do? What are some of your, I will not do this in my marketing? For me, for example, I don't market for alcohol companies. I grew up in a neighborhood where alcohol was prominent. I don't want to sell that to someone else as a problem solver because I know alcohol is not a problem solver. So I won't market for companies like that. And it goes back to what you said, Arielle. It's your foundation, your key values that show up in marketing. I love to know your take on that, Tracy.
No, I love that. I just am over here nodding because it's the same for big companies too, right? Like when we go in for projects, it is amazing how many times people say, "Oh, let's not worry about the mission, vision, values. Let's skip that. We've already done that." And it's like it also changes, right? And I think that's one of the things that I always love to tell people is like where you start maybe is not where you're going to be forever. So like pick where you're at today, but also don't forget to come back to it because your mission, if you're not aligned on your mission, vision, values, it's going to be really hard. You may be a solopreneur today. And so you might be like, well, of course I know me. I can make those decisions. And that's awesome. Once you start hiring a team, and once you start communicating with a lot of people, knowing your mission, vision, values is always going to help you stay in your lane, so to speak. And staying in your lane helps you be authentic. It helps you sound authentic. It helps you connect with the people that you're trying to connect with. So I would always say just knowing what those things are. And I love what you both said, but Yanta, you had double clicked into it, which is like, a lot of people talk about vision boards and like what they want to see. And I always like to see, like, I always like to tell people around me what I don't want, because I think if I can like clearly say what I don't want, it helps me articulate what I do want. Right. And I think that's important, especially in tone. It's like, do I want to be funny? Do I want to be fun? Do I want to, those are two different things. And so watching brands be funny and being like, does that fit with me? Do I think that that's what I want? Okay, maybe not. Like, okay, let's go over more to the serious side and then see how that feels. And I think just taking in as much as you can and starting to find your lane of, okay, how serious do I want to be? How fun do I want to be? How funny do I want to be? And again, you're going to do that on a ton of adjectives. But those little questions that might seem like, wow, why are they telling me to do this really boring exercise of figuring out like my personal values, my brand values, like asking me about mission statements? It might all be like, it might seem like a step backwards, but it's like, I always compare it to a map, and I know these days we just use Google Maps, so it's a little bit more automated. But if you think about like, if somebody dropped you in the forest and they were like, come find me. Well, like, okay, well, where will you be? Right. Like, that's your vision, right? Like, where do I want to go? And then like my mission and vision and values help me keep me on the path to get to that thing. And so if you don't have that roadmap, then you're just going to be constantly guessing at your marketing. And that's going to be really expensive and really time consuming.
Oof, I love it. I love so much that you touched on. I'm actually going to pull out two things. Something Yanta said was getting stuck when you are at the beginning, allowing yourself to be overwhelmed and not really knowing where to go, just starting. And then the thing that you also touched on, Tracy, was it's not permanent. I love telling my clients this so much. Nothing is permanent. But if you go into it thinking, I have to get this perfect and right, you're going to stay stuck where Yanta mentioned and not move forward, because you're going to be so terrified that this is long term. This is forever. When I'm working with my clients and my coaching, I tell them all the time, let's just make a decision that we're at least willing to commit to for the next 3 to 6 months. And if it does not work out with tracking and metrics, and we're actually going to make sure we track these things in marketing, because that's what we do, then we can move on. Like, okay, we learn, as Tracy said, like we learned what we did not like.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrated. I remember being so frustrated in college, learning all the majors that I hated first, or learning all the classes that I hate. I'm like, why can't I find the thing I love? Like, what is up? Like, I felt so frustrated, but it was like, I look back now and I'm so happy, because the same happened when I started my business. Like, there's so many things in marketing, and we'll get on that in another topic, on that topic on another day, because it's just that much. I couldn't figure out which one I love, but I kept pointing out the things like, all right, I know I'm not too fascinated about that. I understand its importance, but it's not for me. You know what I'm saying? And going through that, and it's effective when you're able to pull out all those things. Yes, we want to be able to immediately find what we love, but the world is ever evolving and ever changing. And like Tracy mentioned, your mission will do the same, because right now you may be serving someone in this area, but as you grow, flow, and do more things, you may find that actually my strengths lie over here.
I love what you brought up, Arielle, because those are 2 points that I took out from our conversation. The marketing changes. I love that, Tracy, because that has to be very much so aware, because the marketing changes because we change. Our belief in what we're doing and belief in what we have changes. And if you don't go back to your mission statement or your values, core values you have for your company, for example, you might not was a social responsible company in the beginning, and you see the need for eco-friendly or go green, and you changed that and you added that into your business, but you never change your values and you never change your mission statement. Even for those who are looking for grants or looking for companies to partner up in collaboration, they look at your mission statement and your values. If you never changed it, they never know that you're an ally for them. So they would never reach out. They would never collaborate with you. Just like when now we're in the diversity mindset that everybody is equal and need equal opportunity to be in the business and have a wonderful place to work. If you don't change your values from the old traditions that you used to do, no one's going to apply for or want to work with your company because they think you're going to do the same thing. So that's one of the most important things Tracy brought up, that you need to know what your mission and your values is, because you also might be losing out on opportunities. And then the second thing was, and since we're talking about marketing, I think we
Yeah.
need to bring it up to, it's right now in the modern day age that we are, we're not totally talking about all traditional marketing, because traditional marketing is kind of hard to just start. We're talking about now in the digital world where you have access to many opportunities and tools and resources. You can just start, because the consumer unfortunately thinks that once you start to put your video out there, once you start to tell people what you do, all of a sudden people want to buy your stuff. That is not true. That is not marketing. You have to grow a relationship with them. And in the digital world, we need to know that, like you said, Arielle, tracking, matrix, and testing. That's really what it is: tracking, matrix, and testing. And you can't go out to, we don't care if you don't come to us, but you can't go to other people also expecting that they're going to be able to all of a sudden bring in millions of dollars for you having them to do marketing for you for 30 days. Marketing is a long-term investment. And if you're not willing to make
Mm.
that long-term investment in your business, why are you in business? Because once you start marketing, you will never stop. And let me give you a kicker here. When you decided to start your business, you actually literally started marketing, because the first thing you had to do was tell somebody to buy your
Yep.
product. And however you did it to convince them to do that first purchase, you started marketing, and you will be in this for life.
Now I hope they like marketing, because now they're going to be in it for life. So I mean,
You're stuck.
yeah. No, but I think it's a really important conversation, right? Because I think not only do we change and do we have different things that we want to go after, right? Because you learn when you're in business, right? Like I've learned having Teams and Co now for 5 years, like the things I started doing, I'm like, oh, I like those kinds of projects, or I don't like those kinds of projects. I also learn a ton about like what my customers want, and those continuous conversations with your customers, to Yanta, to your point, like people's think the things they want change over time, right? Like none of us are static human beings. If we think about the thing we loved when we were kids, we may not love that anymore, right? I mean, Yanta probably still loves watching commercials because she's like a total marketing geek, but not everything is going to hold true over like our lifetimes, right? And so keeping that conversation going with people, and the ecosystem changes, right? Like people's needs change, right? Like how we serve them is going to have to change, where they get their information, like I don't think anybody's used MySpace in a while. I don't know anybody who, certain information we get from a newspaper, but we're not usually like, like, are we running, is our business the kind of business that runs an ad in a newspaper, or is it the kind of business that, our consumers are getting information on Instagram, or is it LinkedIn, or is it, word of mouth and you're going to a conference, right? Like those things could be a huge waste of money for some companies and a huge way to connect with your customer for a different company, right? Like it's why they all exist. It just doesn't mean we have to do them all. Like we have to pick what works for us and what works for our customers. And that's where the tracking comes in, right? Because you'll start to see what works, right? So if you're like out there posting on, Facebook 10 times a day and with all this different content, and you're like, okay, well, maybe the content's not working. And I tweak my message a little bit. And then it's like, maybe the people I'm serving aren't on Facebook. Maybe I should like do a few customer interviews. That's what I always tell people. They're like, how do I know what to do? I'm like, well, have you spoken to your customers? Like, have you interviewed 5 people that could potentially be your ideal client, and just ask them like, where do you get information, and what would you like the information to be? Do you like landing pages? Do you like emails? Do you like Instagram? Whatever it is, but you can start to learn and evolve over time by getting that data.
What I heard you say, Tracy, was
I,
not getting data can bring frustration.
And a lot of money. It brings a lot of cost, right? Like I mean we've all been there, and that's why we're all kind of giggling when this comes up. I mean, I don't know how many times people are like, well, like how much money should I be spending on Facebook? I'm like, well, I don't even know if you should be spending money on Facebook. Like let's back up. Like, should you even be on Facebook? Like let's like take 4 steps back, because there's a lot you can learn organically, right? So in marketing, we talk about organic and paid. Paid is obviously all those ads you're paying for. Organic is things like, your blog posts and your website, and, just the free posts that you do on social media, things that are free to you. And you can learn a ton about that kind of stuff before you even start paying for anything. So sometimes I think people get so anxious about marketing, they start spending dollars before they need to be spending dollars.
Oof. So true. Listen, when it comes to those paid ads, if you are not crystal, and I mean see through crystal clear, you should not be putting money up on something to see if it works, because the best person to test it is your folks that you already have or folks that are already in community organically. You're not supposed to be throwing spaghetti at the wall on ads. That's money. That's a lot of money. Like, throw spaghetti at the wall organically on the people that are already in your immediate network, or utilize things like Answer the Public or Reddit, because they tell you what they're pissed off about. They tell you what they're struggling with. They type into Google and ask these questions, and you can see how many people ask these questions in this year. And sometimes it's like millions. And so that's a problem that you need to solve. And that's where you're getting your answers from. So I 100% agree. Not against ads. I'm definitely for paid advertisement. But if you're not crystal clear, like, that is just a hard pill to swallow, because you're going to be dumping a lot of money and your thought's going to be Facebook ads doesn't work. Well, actually, you're probably not even supposed to be there, because your folks are probably on LinkedIn. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't even test that
Come
out
on
to
over
see,
to the dark
you
side.
know?
So I say that to say I love Facebook, and Facebook is the dark side. Facebook makes everything so much easier for you to do. And ads are so much easy. You can go click, start it up, and put it out there. And like you said, Arielle, ads are a wonderful thing. We're not disclaiming ads. What we're saying is not understanding and have a crystal clear view of what you're doing with your ads, who your ideal client is truly. Are you giving them what they want, what you're trying to sell? And is your shit not boring? Like, who cares for boring ads? Like, are you talking, or is your content, is your voice, is your brand consistent and talking to that ideal client that wants to actually purchase your stuff? Because you said something very good, Tracy. You said something about products. And I go to that because that's us serving our customer. And we can't have this conversation. We're not having this conversation about y'all, because everything is surrounded about you, the customer. And if we don't ask you what you want, what you need, and for example, you gave a good one where things change, beliefs change, behaviors change, household change. You might have. I've been in I'm in a shoppers club. They changed the product, and people was like, I love the old product, bring that product back. Why did you change the formula? And so they didn't ask the people before they changed the formula. They just changed the formula, assuming because I'm making this a healthier product, you're going to love this product like you love the last. Yes, thank you for making it healthier, but I like the taste better, so I bring it back. And so you have to constantly think not just about your business, how it changed and the values change, also how your customers' business characters and value change, and why will they stop coming to your company, and not getting your feelings about it. So I don't use Tide and all those gains or anything like that, not because they're not good companies. It's just because they don't provide me the eco-friendly and non-toxic that I don't want in my house. So I, as a customer, and I was a Gain lover, I love the smell of Gain. However, because I'm on another holistic health journey and my belief has changed from just buying products to buying eco-friendly that helps the environment, and for my health to make sure that I don't take unnecessary toxins in my body, I changed my brand. And so you need to also monitor how your customers coming and going. When do they fall out? What's going on in trends that's currently out there? Did because when eco-friendly came, everybody was there. Then all of a sudden companies lost money because people wanted better brands. So companies started to add those better brands that other clients want into their customers wanted into their company. So I just love how you brought those products up and how we have to surface around and also identify our customers changing and their beliefs changing. And how do we know? We ask.
Yeah, I think it's the asking part is the part that even about eco-friendly, right? Like I've worked for a lot of mission-driven brands throughout my career, and eco-friendly could mean a lot of things, right? It could mean, do I have recyclable or biodegradable packaging? Do I have, do I have different ingredient profiles? Do I leave certain things out of my products? Do I plant trees after I sell every product, right? Like there's such a gamut of like what could be important to your customer within that, you know, it's the only way to really know is to ask people. And obviously your personal values are going to drive it as well, right? And so as an individual, you might say, hey, you know, here's my line in the sand, so I'm only going to make products this way. But also then asking them. And the reason it's really helpful to ask them is because then you might know what else they want, right? Like you'll know the next product to make. You'll know that, hey, they're looking for this other thing. I was talking to somebody yesterday and we were talking about how do you online for product-based businesses sell more products and like build a stronger relationship. So somebody's not just, Arielle, you brought this up on the last one, just doesn't come to you once, but they're coming back to you, right? So say I'm going to make this up. Say you have a jeans company. Well, do you need to start making belts or do you need to start making shirts, right? Like, what are your customers looking for? What's their next thing they want? People are always like, well, how do I choose? I'm like, well, have you sent a survey to your current customers? Like, I mean, they're there. Like, ask them, like, hey, would you all like us to start making belts or you're looking for great shirts, right? Or are you looking for a different kind of pant? Like, do you want chinos? Do you want dress pants? Like, those are all things you can just, take a little bit of the mystery out and have a conversation about.
I love that. And it hit on something really important. And it's like asking them what's complementary to your product that you already have that's not going to cannibalize it.
Right.
So it's like, you don't want to make something that's going to then cannibalize what you already have. So now you have to drop that product, but you want to make something complementary to it.
Yeah.
And the only way that you'll know is asking the folks that you are already serving, taking that 5 minutes to send out that survey via email, or taking that opportunity to drop, hey, I'm looking to interview 5 of the customers that really love this brand, ask further questions to see how we can better serve this community. Like taking that time to really ask them what they want, what they desire, polling them. And no, we're not going to get 100% feedback on those things, but the folks that will give us the feedback are the folks that we want to hear from, because those are our loyal people that are going to keep coming back. And you mentioned something earlier. I'm not sure if it was you or Yanta or Tracy, but you talked about ingredients changing. I'm a curly girly. And so the products that I buy make a difference on what this hair looks like. Tracy, as you saw last week when we were out in Puerto Rico, it was like out here. Tried a product that changed the ingredients. And I'm like, okay, won't be doing that again. And again, they might have been leaning into eco-friendly, or they might have just changed it without asking us curly girlies. And so it's really important to make sure that we're pulling this information. And that goes back to the questions that we posed earlier. Where do we start? We start with our customer in mind. We start with our values in mind. What's important to them? What do they care about? Why are they here in the first place? Because what if that one ingredient is the reason why they buy your product over anyone else's? And now you've taken it out. And so you've just totally messed it all up. You know what I'm saying? And now everyone is fleeting back to where they were because they were here with you for that particular thing that you had to offer. And so if we're not asking those questions and posing the questions, what are the questions that our customers are asking? What is the beliefs that they have? Like, what is the story they're telling themselves? Like, that is really where it starts.
That's perfect question for our listeners, Arielle. What do y'all want to hear from us? What questions are you asking that you're not hearing from anybody else? What deep dive backdoor stuff that you want to have to help move your business forward or your life forward? Because this also means like talking about the things that get you to purchase that you are a shopaholic and you shouldn't be purchasing. What words to watch out for? What gimmicks to watch out for? Let us know. We love to know what you want us to speak on and talk about.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also for folks who are just getting started, because that's, what we're talking about today is getting started, is it's important to remember, even though we keep saying it doesn't have to be expensive, right? So you think about, okay, if my customer, so say I'm making a product for folks with curly hair, like, or say Yanta was, she could ask both Arielle and I a lot of questions about like what we're looking for in a product, right? Like, and what do we want in that? And that's free. She could just call us up and be like, hey, we're friends, right? Like you have friends, you have family, you have people at work. Maybe, you can kind of ask them, or you can just do some research, right? So if you're like, hey, you know what? I currently use this product and I don't think it's the solution. So I'm going to make a better solution. What are people saying about that product online, right? What are they saying they love about it? What are they saying they don't love about it? If you're more down the road and you have a bigger product portfolio, you can ask your customer service team, like, hey, what are people calling in about that they love? And what do they hate? Like, what are they constantly like, man, you all have to change this. Like, if you could just change one thing, change this, right? So it doesn't have to be this big effort or this big budget, but we talk a lot to companies around how do you just build those opportunities to ask one-off questions, right? Somebody calls in about something, you could say like, oh, hey, great. Obviously you want to solve the thing they're calling about first. And then you could just say, hey, do you mind if I ask you, like, if we could make anything, what would it be? To Arielle's point, like, not everybody's going to stay on the phone and chat it up, but you'll probably get a lot of great insights and you're not paying anything. And you're reminding your customer that you actually care about what they think. Like, if you people want to be asked of their opinion, right? Like, people are like, oh, I don't want to bother people. I'm like, well, I can guarantee you your customer does not think that you're bothering them. Like, if they can do it, they'll do it. And if they do it, they probably really feel great. Like, they're thankful that you actually care about their opinion. Just remember to do something about it, right? Like, ask people's opinion, but then also like close the loop and say, hey, you all asked for this and here's what we've done, right? Because people want you to know that they've, you know, that you've closed the loop. But I don't know. I love free things. I'm like, okay, how do we get this information in like the least complicated way that we could get it?
I think that's a perfect place to put a disclaimer. We're not telling you to change your business model. We're not telling you to pick up everything that your customers say that they want. What we're doing is actually also just listening to them and see if it's in your business model, if it matches your ethics, and it can be done and it's not a burden in your company. Consider what they offering you, because it might make your product better. It might add a better product to your product line, and it might make your customers be advocates of your business and continuously tell other people about you. So I just wanted to make sure you had that disclaimer that we're not telling you to take up everything, because there's some wild things people will ask for in your business. So we don't want you to do that.
It's a good point.
Let's talk about how the mindset in marketing needs to be approached. Or I don't like to say needs. What would be the best approach for you as an individual who's starting marketing and is lost in the sauce, don't know what to do, or have been doing marketing for other people and just never did marketing for yourself? Because we have those out there too. And we recognize you, we see you, and we understand the struggle. It's like HR. I was used to be in HR, human resources, and my HR packet was terrible. Everybody else's packet was in line in the military. They always can get promoted, but I never worked on my stuff. So it's a common thing that a lot of marketers don't always work on their business, but they're really fabulous at helping other people in their business. You want to take that, Tracy?
Guilty. I was gonna say, I was like, I am so guilty of that. And Yanta knows it, so I'm happy to talk about that. I think it's hard, right? Like, after you've spent your career doing something, you know, it's like that old saying, it's like the cobbler always needs to, you know, look at their own shoes or something like that. You know, when you're used to talking, especially in my career, I worked on big brands, right? And so you're always talking about the brand and you're never putting yourself forward. Obviously, there's a lot of people that work on the brand, and you're spotlighting why people work at the company, and you're building the voice, and you're doing all those things. When the brand becomes like your own company, it's a little bit of a shift, right? And you're like, I had to get really used to about talking about the brand and being out there, and talking about like why I started a company. That was really hard for me. And getting the tone and the voice right. Because I think at that point in my career, I had like 7 brands in my head, and I'm like, all right, well, what's my brand, right? And so I think all of those things can happen, and you can kind of get, you know, kind of lost in the sauce, as you say. And so for me, it was really just sitting down with people who I knew and trusted and saying, we tried a bunch of stuff out. And then I kind of took a break and I went back and I watched a bunch of stuff. I like reread posts, and I just kind of categorized things into like, yeah, this doesn't feel like me. This does feel like me. This feels where I want us to go as a brand. And I just asked a bunch of our clients, like, you know, when you think about Teams & Co., what do you think about? You know, what are the 4 words that come to your mind if you could pick any? Like, when you describe us, how do you describe us? And I picked a bunch of people's brains around like, okay, well, how were they perceiving that we were showing up in the world? And was that authentic? Did that feel good to them? Did that feel accurate? Yeah, but it's still a process, right? It's always a process. And it's a process of constantly trying to test stuff out and write things and seeing what resonates with people. So as one of those people who came from marketing and then trying to figure out how to market your own business, it's a journey. And I also will say that I also now work with folks who do that as part of our team. And it's not something that I work on day to day, because I too can just get lost too much in it. I can get too in the details, and then, I'm not doing anybody any favors. So
I love
how about you,
I love it.
Arielle?
No, I love that you said that, because I took a quick note, because it made me think about something earlier that I'm going to pull into what we're talking about now. And it's, you mentioned, so two things. You mentioned how to start. So for the folks that are just starting out, but also for the brands who are experienced, but they're seeing their numbers dwindle, or they're seeing that they're not really reaching their goals that they were previously, or it just seems off. Sometimes you need to sit and go back to those foundations. As Tracy mentioned earlier, yes, you know your values, you know what's important to you, you know what your mission is, but when you grow, scale, and have a full business and a team under you, do they know? Is that stuff already in place? You'll never fall off track, because you can always look back to what the foundation is. And that's how, and that's what I wanted to point out. So like, even, yes, we're talking about where do you start, but sometimes where do you restart? Or where do you rebrand, or where do you get back into the groove of what, like, as you're trying to identify why is it not working, how do you go back into the groove of things? And so that's looking back at, like you just mentioned, like, what are these people feeling? Like, what are my people feeling? Like, what was my initial vision for this? What was my purpose? Like, why did this originally start? And am I still staying true to that? Has that grown? Has that changed? Have I realigned? Am I in alignment with who I am and what I want to be? Have I just like grown so much that I haven't paid attention, that I'm now just doing things just for the sake of doing things? And so I love that. But also I want to point to that, yes, it is very hard to market for yourself. Very much so. Yes, that is something that I experienced myself. I'll tell you, I hid out for like 3 months when I first started my own business, because I'm like, who am I? What am I? What is this? And it was like, girl, you are a marketer. Like, you have marketing for one of the largest universities in the world. Like, how are you asking yourself, who do I market to and how do I speak to them? So sometimes we do forget, and sometimes we fall into it because we're so busy serving that we're forgetting to serve for ourselves, or we're forgetting to show up for ourselves. So I definitely resonates with those folks who are like, I can do it for you. It's a little hard to do it for me.
Arielle, you hit some key points, and Tracy, because I love what you said. Your team needs to know your message and what you're delivering, especially when this is for the ones that's scaling and have a team. And what I took from that is, if you don't allow people to who's helping you, assisting you, that's even if you're virtual assistants or you're using contractors, they still need to know your mission and what your voice is, because the message can get lost. And if you have so many people with their hands on your material, the message can get lost. So you always need to also check and view your messages. Just because you might hire someone to do something does not mean they always know your intent. So you need to be very clear on your intent and what your voice is, and make sure they don't maneuver your voice just because they're trying to get materials out there for you. And I would be repressed if I do not talk about great tools and things to help with this research, since we're in the modern day age. We do have a lot of AI tools out there. And the common one everybody knows is ChatGPT, because it just came on the scene and just blew up. However, AI has been out there for several years. I've been doing AI for over 5 years now. And so with looking at that, Tracy, you said just ask questions. So sometimes you don't have people readily available and you need to brainstorm. You can always jump into ChatGPT and brainstorm questions to ask your customers, questions to ask your clients, questions to ask your friends, hell, questions to ask yourself that you don't that you're doing, and is it right for you to be doing? But you also have Bard, and the difference between using Bard and using ChatGPT to get these answers is, and I go back to what you said earlier, Arielle, Reddit, and I love Ask the Public. So and they have a free thing, and I think they have a lifetime going on right now if you get in real quickly. But I go to Bard because Bard actually is built from Google, and Google allows for online search. So ChatGPT, you have to use a plugin or a link to read stuff on the internet, or give you data up to a certain date that they continue to add data to it. So I'm not going to give you the end date of it, because they continue to add data and move the date. However, Google is built from Google, who is the internet guru, internet search engine that has all the information, which can do real-time search and give you a starting point on competitors, on companies, on good value mission statements out there that you can go and research. So I wanted to throw that tool in because we're in the modern age, and as Tracy say, we keep shit simple here, and that's one of the things to help keep things simple for you.
Yanta, can you go ahead and spell out that thing you just mentioned? I think I missed it.
So if you just go to Bard, you have to have a Google account for Bard. But if you go to Bard, it'll allow you to get in and you can do the same thing you do in ChatGPT. It's a free service too, and they don't have an upgrade. So only person has the upgrade is ChatGPT, where you can do the ChatGPT 4 and you can upgrade it with the $20 plan with them.
As Tracy mentioned, we love free. So Answer the Public is also free. Reddit is free, as well as Bard is free. And I love that it has that component where it's leaning into Google. So, you should always fact check. But I love that it has that component that we know we're at least we're pulling articles and information off of the online from directly from online. Say
fact check 3 times, Arielle. Fact check. Do not take it for life off these chat things. Thank you. I had to put that out there, Tracy. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, just, I think you touched on this earlier about other things, but, in the course of our work, we use lots of things. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to. So, we're just throwing out stuff that people use, but if you're interested in them and you want to learn more, we are not like, giving our seal of approval to anything, but, these are helpful tools if you want to check them out. And fact checking citations, always very important. You don't want to go out there and just be using stuff. So those are the disclaimers of the show. That's the fun part always in marketing. You'll always be using a lot of disclaimers. So, now you've got 3 marketers disclaiming everything. But
right.
I was also thinking about how much time you could use on like a Saturday if you asked AI what questions you should ask yourself and then answered them and then asked more questions. Like you could be there all day just like in a rabbit hole.
On that segue, can you just lean into Tracy as not using ChatGPT? Let's actually use the human brain and say what type of stuff that will adjust your mindset when you start this mission, when you start wanting to do marketing and get out there and put yourself out there, because we do understand trolls are out there. We do understand that it's a whole mindset shift starting a business, even just wanting to get in front of people. We have our introverts and our ambiverts, and then we have our extroverts, and then we just have our verts.
Yeah, as an introvert, it took me a long time to, think about getting out there. I think the thing that's helped me is not getting stuck in the being out there portion of it, if that makes sense. So I would give you an example. We were just a bunch of us were all together, and I was having a conversation where I actually generally don't like to be recorded or be in video format. I'm just a really introverted person. I'm pretty shy. I don't love the whole experience. One of my team members, when the pandemic started, was I think we should do a podcast because we have all these things to say, it could be helpful for people as they're navigating all these changes. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to be on a podcast that feels really out there. And he's like, I think it'll be great. And honestly, the thing that I've learned is if you keep your customer in mind and it's about them, then it's easier, right? For me, it's really easy to say, hey, I have these things that I could share. And if I can be helpful, awesome. And if I notice it's not helpful, then I just stop doing it, right? And so if people are not reading articles I'm writing, then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I don't want to know about that. Or if they're not listening to a podcast, I'm like, okay, I guess that wasn't interesting. I'll stop. But I think if you can kind of approach it from, Yanta, you were saying this, is in that service mindset of, hey, I just, I want to share some stuff that I find interesting. And if others find it interesting, great. I don't know. That's how I kind of get over my introvertedness. And then after podcasting, I just don't talk to anybody for the rest of the day. So that's my other tip. I just hang out with my dog and we just sit in silence.
I love it. Listen, piggybacking on what both of you all said, when it comes to that mindset, I truly believe, and Yanta hit this on the head, when you are going into business for yourself in any sort that mindset is real. Like you have to reframe a lot of the beliefs and the thoughts, limiting beliefs, if they're there, and what you perceive to be true, and reframe them to evidence-based and facts. That fact check popping up again. You really want to be able to shift from thinking, okay, and when it comes to the introverts, or extroverts, I'm an ambivert, where I put on a mask to be extroverted as it's needed, and then go back into the darkness and hide until it's time to come back out again. So it's like, where does our mindset lie on these different things when showing up, and or even in business at all? It doesn't necessarily have to be forward facing. It could be at a networking event, in public and speaking there, or it could be on a sales call. So that's, even though that's more intimate, you're still showing up. So it's in every aspect of the business, marketing, delivery, and sales, showing up and having that mindset shift to lean towards more of the, is this thought factual? Is it real? Where's the evidence surrounding this fact? And how can we reframe it to be more positive and impactful for what we are trying to do leaning forward?
Yeah. Thank you, Arielle, because thank you, Tracy, actually, because this is me actually fact tracking my mindset. You said something really good when you said, once you keep your customer in mind, it makes it easier. And that is what I do. I try to keep my customer in mind to make it easier, but also, I would say start out what feels easy to you. I'm putting myself out there now on this podcast to other people, because I know I can have great conversations collaborating with somebody before I have great conversations by myself looking at a camera. So I put myself out there. So now I can put myself out there for my other side of the house. And you just do the small things that make things easier, and then start to compact on it. And Arielle, what came to my mind when you were saying something was, when showing up is not showing up. And what I mean by that is, if you're not going to show up as your authentic self and allow your people to see you, hear you, and know who you are, that comes with that fact checking, that comes with that limited belief that you are not alone. They are feeling the same way, and they need you. When you show up as your authentic self and who you are, you're showing up. But when you show up with everybody else who done poured into you, that is not you, that you're flipping the switch every week trying to figure out who you're trying to be, that's when showing up is not showing up. We're not asking you to show up that way. We're asking you to really deep dive into who you are, figure out what mindset trash is stopping you from moving forward, and elevating yourself. Little baby steps. We're not even asking you to jump all the way out there. Just little baby steps to get you started, because that's why we did this podcast. So those who are out there who have these idea that marketing is so hard to do, I can't do marketing, I hate marketing, I don't like to be on social media. You like money, don't you? You like paying your bills, don't you? So we did this so that we can talk to you. And so I wanted to say to you, from me to you, we see you, we hear you. We know that what you've been through, because we've been through those things too. Just baby steps. You are not alone.
Yeah. No, that is great. And I think that is a perfect way to end this episode. And we will happily answer more questions about your mindset. If you have things coming up for you, if you have questions about marketing, if you have questions about starting a company, we obviously... it's behind the buzzwords. So, if you can think of a great buzzword that you have a question about, we will try our best to answer it. If we have no idea what we're talking about, we'll also tell you that. But on that note, I think we'll see you next week.
All right.
I saw that we were
so good, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found something new that was helpful. And if not, I hope you had a good laugh with us. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. The views expressed by the guests are their own and may not reflect the views of Behind the Buzzwords or the co-host. Mentions of particular books, digital tools, or strategies or participation of guests does not imply endorsement by Behind the Buzzwords or the co-host. This information provided is meant for educational and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as professional advice.